What if I told you that some of the most feared poisons of the 20th century, well, what if they weren't dangerous at all? Today, we're diving into a theory that completely flips history on its head. It claims these materials were actually key parts of a powerful, protective machine that was designed to help us all thrive. So yeah, let's get right into it.
And this quote from the source material really kicks everything off. The idea is that the real treasures of a lost world aren't buried gold, but are hidden in plain sight, in the very walls and materials we've been taught to fear and tear down. It's a total paradigm shift, asking us to look for answers where we'd least expect them.
So what was this system? The source gives it a name, the Sovereign Machine. It's this three-part system of power, connection, and protection that was supposedly integrated into our environment, into our buildings, and even into our very bodies. We're going to break down each part of this machine, one by one.
Okay, first up, the power source. According to this theory, it all started with an element we now consider one of the most dangerous things on the entire planet.
And this is where we see the two narratives clash. The official story we all know is that radium is a deadly radioactive poison and a modern discovery. But the source we're looking at claims that's a psyop. The radiant truth, as they call it, is that radium was actually an ancient, clean fuel source.
So how would that even work? Well, the idea is that radium salts were placed way up high in the spires of old-world buildings, like the giant cathedrals. This would apparently ionize the atmosphere, creating a pathway for natural energy to be drawn from the ether, this supposed universal energy field, and then broadcasted wirelessly, providing a kind of cold light for everyone.
This image just lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see the spire acting like a massive antenna, pulling energy right out of the air and sending it out. And according to the source, this wasn't just for lighting up cities, it was a kind of radiant healing energy. Okay, so if radium was the spark, the power source, how is that energy actually conducted and used? Well, that brings us to the second part of this theoretical machine, the circuit.
And here we go again. Two totally conflicting stories. Modern health advice says, we only need tiny trace amounts of copper, but this theory claims copper is absolutely vital, that it's the wiring that connected not just buildings, but our own bodies to the Earth's electrical field.
Now, what's really fascinating here is just how versatile copper was supposed to be in the system. We're not just talking about wires. It was the antenna on the roof, it was a natural shield against germs, and get this, it was the key element that supposedly made our blood magnetic enough to carry an electrical charge from the Earth itself.
And you can see it in the architecture right here. Those beautiful, ornate, copper domes and weather vanes. The source claims they weren't just for decoration. Nope. They were receivers, collecting that atmospheric charge from the radium spires and channeling it right into the home, and by extension into the people inside.
And here's a great little real-world example. Ever wonder why old pennies were almost pure copper? The source argues it was basically a tool. By carrying around a copper coin, a person was constantly holding on to a conductive element that helped keep their personal energy field grounded and clean. Now we get to the final and maybe the most controversial part of this machine, the protective shield. And this involves two materials we have been taught to fear a lot.
I mean, the modern narrative is crystal clear. Lead and asbestos are incredibly dangerous hazards. But this theory presents a pretty wild alternative, that they were actually essential shielding components designed to protect us from harmful frequencies and energetic static.
This is a question that really makes you stop and think. The source uses this memory that a lot of us have, playgrounds covered in lead paint, to challenge everything we assume. Was it just ignorance back then? Or was there maybe another purpose that we've totally forgotten?
And here's the answer the source gives. It claims the lead paint wasn't a danger, but a frequency anchor. It was there to physically ground children, connecting them to the Earth's natural frequency and shielding their developing minds from disruptive, artificial signals.
This image just perfectly visualizes the whole point. You see a child, grounded and shielded, who has a static-free mind. The theory suggests that this shield, made of lead and asbestos, protected our intuition and kept us from being, energetically manipulated.
So if a system like this really did exist, what happened to it? Well, the source argues its removal was a very deliberate, systematic act that it calls the Great Unplugging.
And this is where the theory ties directly into our modern lives. You ever feel just completely tired or drained in a modern office building?
one made of plastic and drywall? The source suggests it's because these buildings are missing those conductive and shielding elements of the past. We've literally been unplugged from our power source.
So, to put it all together, here are the 3 pillars of the sovereign machine, according to our source material. You've got the spark, which is radium, providing infinite power. Then the circuit, copper, connecting us to that power. And finally, the shield, lead and asbestos, protecting us from interference. That's the whole shebang.
And the source leaves us with this really empowering thought, right? It totally reframes how we should see the past. We're not just looking at old relics. We're rediscovering the parts of a machine that, if this theory is right, is just waiting to be turned back on.
In the end, whether you think this is a compelling piece of hidden history or just a fascinating thought experiment, it leaves us all with one powerful question. If we start looking at the walls and the roofs and the materials we've thrown away, what other fundamental truths might we find hidden right there in plain sight?